What is up guys, Taiki here, and today I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory for you guys regarding the cryptocurrency called Waves, and I guess, my hypothesis on why it's gone up so much even despite the treacherous market conditions, and why I think it has something to do with the sanctions that the US has placed on Russia. So if you like the content, please like and subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section below. None of this is financial advice. Obviously, look at this photo, right? I mean, this is a meme. So don't take me too seriously. I do not own any Waves. I think it's a little risky to own Waves. I mean, yeah, not financial advice. This is completely based 100% off of my research. I haven't confirmed any of this with anybody. I'm just, I guess I had a lot of free time and I just figured out maybe there's something going on in here, right? So obviously whenever something pumps a lot, in this case Waves, I just naturally ask myself why is it pumping that much, right? Because Waves has been around since 2016, and you can see this chart, right? It was at 20 cents, it pumped in the bubble, and then it went back to zero, and then most recently in 2021 it pumped a lot, dumped a lot, pumped a lot, dumped a lot, and now it's pumping back again. And I just asked myself, why is this happening, right? Why is this happening? And I kind of looked further into, I guess, the tokenomics, and I think I do know why it's pumping. And it has to do with this stablecoin, the Algo stablecoin called Neutrino USD. This is USDN, and you can kind of see that since inception, the market cap of USDN has gone up, right? So there are a lot of people minting USDN. But how do you mint USDN, right? Because I mentioned it's an algorithmic stablecoin, right? And you can kind of also see on DeFi Llama that the TVL is going up. So how does USDN work? Well, it's similar to that of UST, right? The Terra stablecoin, where I guess for Luna, if you want to mint one UST, you burn $1 worth of Luna, right? And you just burn Luna and you mint one UST, right? And that's kind of how it works. But for Waves, it's a little different, right? It's a similar concept where instead of burning Waves, right, $1 worth of Waves to mint one USDN, you take $1 worth of Waves and put it into a staking contract, okay? And because Waves is a proof of stake blockchain, the Waves that go into the stake contract earns yield, right? I believe the yield right now is roughly 5%. And because the Waves, right, in the staking contract is earning yield, if you stake your USDN, you're able to earn 5 to 15% on your stablecoin, right? So it's kind of similar to UST, except that I guess it's less proven and it's I guess more young, and I guess it's a lot more volatile. And when I was doing my research, Sasha, who is the founder of Waves, right, he has 130,000 followers. He essentially tweeted hey, why do you need liquidity pools if the native USDN APY is 10% now? You get 10% interest for just staking USDN in your wallet. And because I saw the 5% figure, I was like, okay, how are you earning 10%, right? So okay, how are you earning this? And then Vladimir, right, who is a dev from Waves, right, a nice guy here, said that, okay, Waves rings 5% by its nature, USDN is collateralized by Waves, and that is why. And then I'm like, okay, how do you get 10%? And how it gets 10% is because, right now, because Waves has pumped a lot, USDN is over collateralized, right? So if the price of Waves after you mint USDN with it doubles, then technically, there's a 2-to-1 ratio, right? There's $2 billion of Waves and $1 billion of the USDN, right? And because Waves is being staked, it's earning yield, and it's I guess over collateralized by a factor of 2. You actually earn 10% because 5 times 2. Okay, and I asked it's not over collateralized, it shouldn't be over collateralized, but yeah, it's Waves keeps pumping. So I guess it's similar Ponzonomics with UST, and on the upside it's amazing, right? It's oh my god, so much yield. But obviously on the downside, there could be risks of a bank run, and that's kind of why I'm cautious and and I'm not saying I mean, you can do whatever you want. It's your money, right? But I don't own any, right? I'm just kind of observing this, and more I guess taking doing takeaways from what this actually means for decentralized stablecoins, right? At least in crypto. So right now there's roughly 600 million USDN issued and 1.5 billion locked. So it's able to offer 10 to 15% roughly. Yeah, and Neutrino will take the staking rewards and then will mint more USDN with it, and then they'll pay you if you have your USDN staked, if that makes sense. So I'll link this in the description if you want to like go through this like a lot slower, right? Because I'm kind of breezing through this. And I guess USDN has other utility on the Waves exchange, which is like like a just a regular exchange, right? And you can like provide liquidity, like you can stake your USDN, earn yield. There's Puzzle Swap, which is like a balancer fork, right, with not that much TVL, right? And then there's like this money market called Virus, which has like 1.2 billion TVL. Pretty impressive, actually. It is what it is, right? And you can earn like these pretty decent yields, right? 14% on USDN. So, anyways, I guess like one question I had for him was because like when this happened with Waves, right? Like it went from like $12 to like $36 and back to $12. Like how did USDN respond? And he mentioned that, no, not here. Yeah, right here. Yeah. There was a D peg to 0.96, which was arbitrage back to 1 during a week or something. There's a strong mechanism for adding collateralization by issuing NSBT, which acts like a bond. So it's kind of like, T-bonds and T-shares, right? Like with Tomb Finance. I'm not going to spend, yeah, so you can read this if you want, but, like that's kind of how it functions. And, let's look at the price of Neutrino USD. And, it's pretty volatile, right? It's not as stable as UST, I guess. But, it's done a pretty good job at holding peg. But I guess, ever since it was created, like Waves has kind of been in like an upward market, right? So it's never had to experience like a more brutal, longer lasting bear market. But anyways, actually it did go from like 35 to like $8, right? So I guess you can call this a bear market or like a super like, pretty brutal bear market. And the fact that USDN has kept its peg, that's pretty impressive. Let's go back to let's go back to the sanctions thing, right? Because like how does anything how does all this have anything to do with the sanctions? But if you actually look at the date when the US imposed sanctions, it was February 22nd, right? And this was when Joe Biden went on TV and addressed the nation about like the sanctions, right? Reacting to Putin's decisions. And if you look at Waves, you see that February 22nd was actually the peak or bottom, or basically it was like the day where Waves started to pump a lot, right? So I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. And then I kind of checked with Luna as well. February 22nd, right? February 21st, I guess it was like up 1.5%, but it was up 9% on the 22nd, and that was like when this crazy rally, right? It's just 2x in like a couple of weeks, like that's when it started. So I'm like, okay, there's like some confluence in this timeline where after the US imposed sanctions, Waves and Luna, which is I guess like the counterparty to these Algo stablecoins, these decentralized stablecoins, it started pumping a lot, right? And UST obviously has pumped a lot, right? I mean the market cap of UST, right? It's just going up only. I mean, you can also see in Neutrino, February 22nd was like when a bunch of people were like redeeming USDN, but February 22nd was like when it bottomed, and then bam, right? It's going parabolic. So I mean, okay, like this, the February 22nd date seems kind of important. And then, as I was looking deeper, I found something interesting. So if you go to, let's skip that. If you go to Sasha, right, who is the founder, right, or at least a co-founder of Waves, mentions that I am from Ukraine, right? And this is February 27th. So he is from Ukraine. Okay, that's interesting. But if you actually look at where he resides, he's actually based in Russia. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Like maybe he has connections to people in Russia in case they wanted to, I guess, escape the ruble and like, earn dollars, right? Because I believe the ruble has collapsed like 50% in value, right? Relative to USD. So, anyone that was able to convert their ruble into USD before the collapse was able to essentially, I guess, like double their purchasing power, right? In terms of the ruble, right? So I was like, okay, like that's kind of interesting. And if you think back to like the 2016 narrative, right? There was like all these like narratives around like, Neo is the Korean blockchain, right? And like, when Korea goes crazy, it's gonna, Neo's gonna pump or something. But Waves is allegedly a Russian blockchain, right? So, I mean, I can't really verify like, like how important this, I mean, this was like 2020, right? And I'm sure like there's like more developments happening. But, I was like, okay, like maybe there's some confluence there, right? So maybe, the US imposed sanctions, people were looking for ways to, I guess, escape the ruble, right? Because they knew they were going to go down in value. And maybe people figured that, like USDN and UST is less risky, right? Is more risky than like a centralized stablecoin, right? Like Tether or USDC, but it was worth the risk. And obviously, like the question is like, if you want like stable coins, like why not like buy Tether or something, right? Like why can't like Russian people or like Ukrainian people or like whoever, why can't they just like flee to like Tether? Well, the reason is because there's this tweet where Mr. Fedorov, who is the vice prime minister of Ukraine, mentioned that, or he asked Paolo from Tether, right? Paolo is the CTO of Tether, to essentially freeze people's funds, right? Like like if so, I guess like if you have like an IP tied to like I don't know like a Russian address, like maybe Tether can one day freeze your accounts, right? And this, I mean, this is unlikely, right? I don't think it's gonna happen. But the fact that it's possible, right, and that the prime minister, right, the vice prime minister is asking Tether to freeze these accounts, it's definitely kind of spooky, right? At least if you're in these countries. Obviously, if you're in the U.S., like I think I'm privileged in the fact that like I don't have to worry about these things, but like people flock to the dollar, right, for safety in these times. So given that if Fedorov is going to Tether for this, right? I mean, I'm sure they can go to like Circle too and do the same thing. So maybe that's the reason. I guess UST and USDN has I guess experienced a surge in demand. And because of like how the Ponzonomics work, right? I'm not going to comment on like the safety of these things because I simply do not know. I can only point to like the historical price and like say like, hey, if you want to take on risk, then go for it. But like I'm not touching this. I'm just simply observing this. I just thought it was interesting. And also this was a video from March 10th, right? I'm just gonna play this. I think the audio is fine. And the Janet Yellen talked about more sanctions coming, right? Which could drive even more demand for a decentralized stablecoin.
Like what? What hasn't been sanctioned already?
So I don't want to give a concrete list of things we're considering, but we've put together an international task force that will begin to seize the assets, the yachts and the real estate of oligarchs who have been sanctioned. We have put in place and could expand sanctions that make it extremely difficult for Russia, its government and its firms to access international capital.
Yeah, so making it more difficult for people in Russia to access like outside capital, right? And maybe Tether wasn't a way out, but maybe like that's kind of risky, right? But if you go for USDN or UST, maybe it's not censorable, right? I'm not sure how like decentralized these stablecoins are, right? At least for USDN, but it's something to think about, right? I feel like the confluence of the 22nd date and both Luna and Waves, I guess like bottoming on the 22nd is kind of interesting, right? I used to think that like the reason Luna is pumping is because people are just like dying for or people want the 19.5% yield on Anchor, right? And I'm sure like that's like part of the factor too. But what if there's there's like demand that we didn't even think about from countries that are being sanctioned that want like dollar exposure, but don't want to go for like a centralized stablecoin like Tether, right? And maybe USD is like riskier than Tether, but maybe it's more risky to hold a ruble or something. So I thought that was cool. So I do want to touch on a few things about USD, right? Because I think USD is much safer than USDN. Just because it's been around longer, the market cap is higher. I know there's like a lot of USD FUD. I've debunked most of the FUD, but I'll like, instead of talking about FUD, I'll talk about like the positive developments that I think is pretty cool. So one thing I'm super excited for, right? And I was excited about this like in October of last year, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna launch something in like November or December," and we had to wait until March, but it's actually live, and it's Alice. So Alice, let's actually go to this spreadsheet. Yeah, not financial advice. What Alice is essentially like a Venmo like mobile app that gives you roughly 10 to 19% variable APY on UST. So I mean, I'm from the States, right? So like I pay my friends via Venmo, right? Like, you know, someone pays me $20 or someone like pays for dinner, I Venmo him like $20 or whatever. It's like a really nice way to, I guess, exchange cash, right? Alice is something similar, except that you're going to be using UST, and the UST will be parked on Anchor, so you're actually going to be able to earn, right, pretty high yields. Right now, I have the application. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll show screenshots later. It's at 19.5%. I think it's going to go down to like 12% or something, right? I mean, Anchor yields are going to go down over time, so like that's totally fine too. But you know, the fact that you have a Venmo that's earning, you know, decent yield, even if this thing is paying like 4%, right? I mean, I feel like that's still a pretty quality app. Yeah, so when you download the app, it's only in beta right now, right? And it's like you have to be referred by someone in order for you to get this beta invite. So I mean, I've already used my referral, sorry, but you know, you have to find someone, I guess a friend. But you know, you download the app, it looks like this. Welcome to Alice, unbeatable savings, send money anywhere, and it looks like that. Right, pretty cool. Sorry for this, like the blurry screenshot, but there are some fees. So if you're on ramping from Bank or Terra Wallet, there's essentially no fees, right? I guess like a 5-cent fee for paying for the Terra transaction fee, you know, from Terra Wallet to Alice. But you know, if you want to off ramp from your Alice app to the bank or Terra Wallet, then it'll take a 0.5% fee. So that's a pretty sizable fee actually. But you know, if you're only going to have a little bit of money on here, earning yield, maybe pay some people, right? You know, that's pretty cool. I'm not really sure like what the regulators will say about this, right? I feel like if this gets too big, the SEC will like block it or something, just because, I mean, Coinbase tried to launch like a 4% yield product on stablecoins, and they even blocked that, right? So, you know, I don't know how like mainstream is going to get, but you know, if you think about like this road to mainstream adoption for UST, you know, these are the things you have to do, right? You can't just like, you know, like, I don't know, like have UST on like DeFi and like, you know, hope it goes up, right? Though that is what's been happening, you kind of have to create more demand from outside crypto. And I think, you know, one of the reasons I've liked Luna so much since like last summer is because I think they actually have a road to like mainstream adoption. It's not clear if they'll get there, right? But you know, you kind of have to bet on, I guess, people and like innovation and progress. And yeah, like USD adoption, you know, the Chai app in South Korea. I couldn't verify the source, but I believe roughly like 8 to 12% of digital payments go through the Chai application, right, in Korea. And I think the Alice application and Kado, which I'll go over later, is, you know, trying to bring it to the West. And you know, SoftBank gave Chai $45 million, right? So, you know, it's a legitimate fintech startup, right? It's, you know, it's high growth. They're going to expand to other countries like Vietnam and Thailand. Platform currently processed more than $6 billion in transactions, right? And it's built on top of on Terra, or it's the co-founder of Terra. So let's go over Kado Money as well. And it's kind of similar, right? It's kind of like this e-commerce company website that allows you to use UST to pay for items, right? So they raised like $5.5 million, and this is their Twitter, right? And if you go to the website, looks like this, you know, and essentially you'll be able to take UST, deposit it here and like buy stuff with it. You know, it's not the most user friendly, right? But you know, you can kind of see like where it's trying to go. And I think you're going to be able to use like USDC and stuff too. So you can go shop now. It's the website. You can buy all sorts of things, you know, from Apple, Adidas. You know, one thing I was looking for was a rug. You know, if you're in crypto, you might as well buy a rug instead of like getting rugged. Let's look for some rugs here, if it even loads. Oh, there you go. So I got some comfy looking rugs here. I kind of like this fluffy one, right? Actually, if you pour coffee or something, it's gonna stain, huh? Maybe not that one. No, and I have a dog, so if he pees on it or something, that's kind of maybe this is a good one. Let's hope my internet can load these things. Or maybe it's like a janky website for now. I don't know, but you know, you can kind of check it out. Oh, there you go. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I kind of like this. Lots of reviews. You know, you can buy all sorts of things with UST, right? I don't think, you know, this has that much of an option, but you know, it's something, right? It's something. So, I think the majority of the market believes that, UST is just going up because of anchor yields. And maybe that's, I mean, that's true, right? I mean, like 19% is like really hard to beat. But I believe that what the market is overlooking is, I guess, the incremental demand from, I guess, maybe like Russian people that want access to a decentralized stablecoin, right? Access to dollars without like the risk of, I guess, being censored, right? Through like Tether freezing their funds or something. There's no way for me to verify this. I'm only going through like the timeline, the dates, and the only confluence I have is like the February 22nd timeline, and I guess UST and USDN going up, and Luna makes sense because it's the biggest one, and then USDN because the team has close ties to like Russia, maybe has effects on it. So I'm just guessing, right? Who knows, right? Hopefully you guys enjoy the video. How long is this video? Okay, not too bad. So anyways, USDN, I don't know. I mean, I don't know any. You do you. Maybe it's worth the risk. UST, I own UST and Luna, right? As everyone knows. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different use case, right? Because UST, the only demand was, well, the majority demand was for Anchor. But what if this is something that we aren't even thinking about, and then maybe throughout 2022, there's gonna be more demand. Who knows? So thank you guys for watching, and have fun farming out there.